It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
We might have our own nerves for our kids going off to school, but unless we can see the world through their eyes, we're never going to be able to give them the empathy and compassion they need on day one.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, it's 2021. I can't believe we've made it after everything that last year was, and then everything that this year has already thrown at us. First podcast back for 2021. Do we really want to do this? Are you ready for it, Mrs. Happy Families?
Look, I don't want to tempt fate, but I don't think 2021 could throw anything at me right now that would surprise me.
There is a meme out there at the moment with a surfer. He's paddling over a wave that says 2020. And in the background is this monster wave coming in behind called 2021. Who knows what's coming? But I'm excited for the podcast for this year. You and I talking, by the way, my name's Dr. Justin Coulson. I'm the author of 6 books about raising happy families. You're my wife and co-host, Mrs. Happy Families, Kylie, mum to our 6 daughters. This podcast this year is really all about helping families to get through the challenges and trials that are almost guaranteed, right? I mean, even if we do get a vaccine organised for coronavirus, and even if we do start to live lives like we used to before 2020, we're still going to have challenges. It's still going to be difficult. In fact, some challenges are just around the corner for pretty much any parent of a school-aged child.
Well, tonight you're doing a webinar about facing first day fears.
Yeah, if you're a Happy Families member, the webinar is included in your membership. If you're not, you can still grab your tickets. They're $30. All the details at happyfamilies.com.au. But yeah, school's just around the corner. New swimming classes, new tennis lessons, new football, soccer, netball, whatever it might be. It's all about to start, and kids start to get worried, huh?
Well, I don't think it's just the kids.
Right. Well, no, that's right, because I can't believe that we didn't talk about this. I've totally forgotten. You've got a first day happening tomorrow.
I do.
Okay, what's the news? Let everyone in.
I have decided this year to go to TAFE.
You're going to go back to school?
I am going back to school. I haven't been in the school playground for 25 years.
As a student, it's been that long.
It's been that long. And what's so funny about the situation is I'm actually going back to my same campus.
Wow.
I've got orientation tomorrow, so it's not actually first day of class, but it's orientation. And I'm going to be completely honest, I am quite anxious.
Yeah, the
about
nerves
this.
are up. I should spill the beans. Kylie's going to go and do a floristry course, not necessarily to become a florist, but just because this is something that you've always loved, flowers.
Yeah.
And cutting your hands open with thorns and...
Well, there's an ulterior motive. I have 6 daughters and
well, we've only had one wedding so far. We can save some good dough here.
That's right.
Mind you, we're going to be pretty busy with all the other stuff going on. I think we're still going to pay a florist. Anyway, so you've got a first day tomorrow and you're feeling a little bit cagey about it, a little bit nervous?
I am. I'm going back to... Obviously, like I said, I'm going back to the same campus, but it's been 25 years. I have no idea where I am. Where's D Block? I don't know where that is. Where am I going to park?
You'll figure that out. You know that you'll figure
I don't know anybody that I'm going to go with, so I'm all of a sudden placed in a room with all of these strangers that am I going to make friends? What am I going to do on my lunch break? Where am I going to find good food to eat?
So can I just be a normal parent for a sec?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this in a horrible way, but most parents with the very best of intentions, when their kids start saying all that stuff, they say, but you'll be right. You'll figure it out. It's not going to be that hard. You'll make friends. Do you have to have friends? Is it that big of a deal?
But I don't know.
Yeah. And this is the thing, isn't it? So I'm
and you're not helping me.
No, of course I'm not, because I don't have to go, and I'm looking at you, and you're this competent, capable, wonderful adult that everybody loves, and of course you're going to be fine. I know that, but that doesn't make you feel any better, does it?
No, it doesn't.
You're still nervous, and you're not actually acting for the podcast like you're actually nervous.
I'm actually nervous. Yes.
And what's important here is that just like you're feeling that way, and with the best of intentions, I'm saying, you know what, honey, you're going to be fine. You're going to be great. Everyone's going to love you. You're such a naturally gifted person with the whole flower thing.
What if I'm late to class and I walk in the front door and everybody stares at me?
And do you think that that's really a big deal, even in your, I'm not going to say how old you are, but even in your, multiple decades of life? Do you think that's a big deal?
My head's swelling just thinking about it. Yes, it's a really big deal.
So if you're feeling like that, how do the kids feel? You know, we've got kids going to kindy or preschool or whatever you call it in your relevant state or territory. They're starting their, big school or little school. They're starting high school. They're starting new schools. They're going to swimming lessons or sport or whatever it might be. The feelings that you're having, to me, don't seem like a big deal because, number one, I'm not going to be doing it. Number two, I think you'll be fine because I've seen you deal with challenging situations before and I know you've got the runs on the board. You're going to be okay. But number three, I'm just not feeling what you feel. And as parents, we don't feel what our kids are feeling. We might have our own nerves for our kids going off to school, but unless we can see the world through their eyes, we're never going to be able to give them the empathy and compassion they need on day one or day two or day three or week 2 or week 3 to get through it feeling supported.
Okay, well, on the other side of the coin, I'm so excited.
Yeah, there's nervous anticipation.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm excited that I actually will get to meet new people and that I'll get to learn a new skill that I have dabbled in but have never actually learnt any proper techniques with. I'm excited about being in a space where I get to create and to bring home beautiful flowers. I love the idea of being in a room of flowers. How exciting. I'm really excited, but that doesn't take away from all of the other emotions that I'm feeling. And so I think, it's important to recognize that our kids can feel two opposing emotions in one space.
In fact, over the last 20 years, that's been one of the big scientific discoveries, is that we don't have our emotions on a continuum from negative to positive. We actually have two continuums or two continua of emotions. There's a negative emotion continuum and there's a positive emotion continuum, which means that you can have high levels of negative emotion and also high levels of positive emotion at the same time. A first day is a great example of that. Another one would be at a funeral. You can be feeling so much grief and sorrow and yet so much gratitude and delight for the family who are there to support you or for the life of the loved one that passed on. So we can have negative and positive emotions, the bitter and the sweet, at exactly the same time. And that's what you're describing. A lot of kids are probably dealing with that as well. So let's take a quick break and talk about how we can help our kids and you to calm those first day fears.
Sounds good.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Are Screens Creating Tension at Home? Tweens, Teens and Screens is a webinar to guide families to healthy, safe super screen solutions. Buy today at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time poor parent, and Justin is giving me some tips on how I can get through day one of school.
And how
we're really going to help the kids.
It's all about you today, isn't it?
So what are some things that some practical steps that we as parents can do to actually help our kids navigate these first day fears?
Well, tonight, the webinar Facing First Day Fears is going to be via Zoom and people can participate in that and get a whole lot of answers. I'm actually going to hand you my notes right now and get you to have a quick look at it. And rather than me just rattling off a whole lot of things, why don't you pick one or two things that stand out to you and let's spend a minute or so on each of them to give people a taster for not only what's in the webinar, but how they can support their kids over the next couple of weeks, because let's face it, I don't remember exactly the calendar, but half the country goes back to school next week, and then on the 3rd of Feb, the rest of the country goes back. So either late Jan or early Feb for Australian listeners, that's when school goes back. So what stands out to you as you just have a look at the piece of paper that I've given you? Orientation
Day. So for most of us, Orientation Day has already happened before the school's broken up.
Yeah. So ideally, late last year, kids were able to go to their new school or their new playground or their new classroom and have that experience of settling in or at least becoming familiar with the surroundings. And that's ideal because the more familiar we are with something, the safer we feel with it. In fact, to give you a really simplistic and almost ridiculous example, back when I used to be a radio DJ, when I was on the radio, we used to do music research with our audience. And what we found is that people would say, I love new music. New music's the best. I just love new music. Because I was working at one of those hot new stations that play all of the hot new music. But when we would play new music, people would turn off. They didn't like the unfamiliar music. We found that people had to listen to the song at least 10 to 15 times before they would start to say, I really like that song, which meant that we had to spin it at the radio station about 100 times before people had heard it 10 times. What's really going on with our kids, and when it comes to school, is they need to be familiar with the environment. And when they're familiar with the environment, they start to like the environment.
Well, I think that works well with routines, right? So when we moved the kids' school just last term.
Yeah, last year, yeah.
We decided that we would start riding our bikes.
We've talked about it on the podcast so much. The bike riding's about to start again, yeah.
We did. But what we actually did was through the holiday period in the lead up to it, we actually started doing that ride with the kids so that they got used to the routine and the feel and, just working out
the expectation,
how to cross the road and all of those things. That made such a difference to, kind of at moving in. And so when I read that, that's what I thought about. Just we're now at the point where orientation days that are run by schools aren't done. So what can we do to kind of help orient our children into, this new routine for some of them, going to school, actually start the routine a week or so early so they get used to waking up at a certain time and what getting dressed looks like.
I really recommend it, yeah. But there's also something else that sort of stands out to me as you talk through that, and that is that there's a lot of families who missed orientation last year. Maybe,
COVID.
COVID, hello. But there's been a huge number of families who have moved. COVID seems to have accelerated people moving house. And so people are in unfamiliar environments. The kids are going to be going to new schools. There's going to be all sorts of new things going on. So I would actually recommend going to the school. Hopefully it doesn't have a huge fence around it. If it does, at this time of year, the gates will usually be open. And I'd actually go into the school and maybe even go into the office with your child and say, hey, you know what, we're starting. We just wanted to know if we could have a wander around, do a bit of an orientation ourselves, or maybe someone can show us around. Help them to get familiar. Reorient them with friends if you can reach out on social media or via, whatever contacts you've got. All of these different things that build up familiarity, build up access to what they're going to be doing is going to help them to feel so much more comfortable to face those first day fears.
So a couple of things that you're going to talk about tonight are taking the pressure off that first day and being available. And this can be really tricky for parents who are working, full-time jobs and trying to kind of create routines that flow and lack in pressure and, nice cruisy mornings. But the one thing that really jumped out as I was looking through the notes is this idea of emotion coaching. So how can I utilize emotion coaching in those first day jitters for my child?
Yeah, I think that I'm not going to go through the whole process now. We just don't have time for that. But emotion coaching really comes down to seeing emotions in your children, being okay with those emotions, helping your kids to recognize the emotion, label it, and then asking them, what they need to do now. Just being with them, being present. We don't actually have to give them answers. We don't have to work things out. We just need to be there. I was actually thinking as you were talking about that, it's the end of the first day. Let's take the pressure off there, especially. Get takeout. Do whatever you can to make it a really relaxing night. But when you say to your child, how was school today? There is a chance that they're going to say, meh. Or they might even say, it was the worst day ever. And that's when the emotion coaching really comes in. That's when you say, oh, wow, it sounds like you had a really rough day. Do you want to talk about it? And they might say yes, they might say no. And if they say no, say, okay, well, when you're ready, I'm here. And just let it be. If they say yes, listen, but don't fix. Just listen. Say, wow, that sounds like it was tricky. What do you think you can do tomorrow? How can I help you? Those kinds of gentle conversations are going to help you to have a much more successful experience with the kids and also help them feel empowered to make tomorrow better.
So when's the right time to have that kind of conversation? Because I notice sometimes, when we get home and I ask that question as soon as we walk in the door or even as they get in the car, I don't
get on the bike because we're riding.
I don't get any response from them. They're done.
Yeah.
Their brain seems to be toasted from the day at school and they're over it. So when would be the best time for me to ask those kinds of questions?
It just depends. Some kids are going to come home. They're going to be so excited. Oh, guess what, Mum? Guess what, Dad? I had the best day ever. And then they're going to tell you. And sometimes
we have one of those.
Yeah, we do. And then we'll have, there might be some children who you say, hey, how was school? And they give you nothing. And in that instance, I just remind parents of what they're like when they walk in the door and their partner looks at them and says, hey, how was work today, honey? Do you ever look at your partner and say, oh, so glad you asked. Let me tell you everything that happened. Like, that's just not what we say as adults. We're like, yeah, it was fine. I'll tell you about it later, because we just want to decompress. We want to settle into the afternoon or the evening. So give the kids some time. Let them wind down from what's been a pretty emotionally and potentially even physically exhausting day, and then have the conversation at dinner or have the conversation when they're climbing into bed that night. Go really soft, go really easy.
Well, I hope that you're all thinking of me tomorrow when I have my first day.
I can't wait to see you off.
Send me all your good feels because I'm going to need every one of them. And good luck to all of our families who are going back to day one of 2021 in the school.
There's about a week to go until families start to get really serious about it, but hopefully this has been a good, helpful, early pep talk. We really hope you've enjoyed the podcast. If you do enjoy it, please visit Apple Podcasts. We love it when you leave those ratings and reviews so that other people can find out about the podcast to make their families happier. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media, and our executive producer is Craig Bruce. If you'd like more info about making your family happier, you can get all the information about our Happy Families memberships, including tonight's webinar about facing first day fears, at happyfamilies.com.au.